So I grew up on Oahu. In 1972, I came to Kauai for the first time. I was in a Boy Scout troop, Troop 74. And we had this big plan of going to Kauai, hiking into Kalalau, and living off the land for 2 weeks. We city boys thought we knew what we were doing. We had 3 advisors, and we were feeling good. We brought backup food. We started hiking, and as we're hiking, we were coming across mango, mountain apple. I had never seen a mango tree that full. Mountain apple. I never saw a mountain apple tree, and orange trees, guavas, and we were eating as much as we could as we're hiking on this trail. And then we came across streams, and we started to fish for o'opu and prawns. We were living it up. We were eating as much as we could. But unfortunately, with that kind of diet, something happens. We all got a severe case of diarrhea, which forced us to turn to our backup food. Well, we go into our backpacks and found that it was already open. Wild cats had taken our backup food, which was mostly ramen. And we were forced to leave Kalalau early. And fortunately, some of our advisors knew some families in Hanalei, and we were able to stay on their properties. And I remember one night, I decided to take a stroll along the shoreline. I had a flashlight, and I'm walking in the shallow part of the ocean, and I'm following fish. And then something hit me, this strong impression, and this voice told me, this is your home. And it was powerful. This is where you belong. And I felt that. And I was at peace. And I never forgot that. It was so powerful that I went home and I told my dad, I said, Dad, you never believe what happened to me. We're on the wrong island. That was his reaction. He chuckled. And I thought, this is for real. That's what I felt. And so that feeling stayed with me for a while. Well, fast forward 11 years from that time, I'm attending Brigham Young University of Hawaii. And I meet a young lady. And I found out she was from Kauai. And I was like, of course. Hanalei, Kauai. Oh. The voice came back. These feelings came back to me. And we fell in love. And we decided to get married. So I had made plans to come to Kauai again. It's been a while. To meet her parents and to ask permission to marry her. So I'm a little nervous. I meet the family, and I ask them if I could, talk to them after dinner. Well, for some of you who know, my wife's parents were actually her grandparents who adopted her. They were her legal parents, and Grandpa was a full-blooded Hawaiian. Grandma was nearly full-blooded, grew up on Ni'ihau, and they spoke only in Hawaiian to each other, and they were people of very few words. And so after dinner, we meet in the living room. And this was a time to just really talk myself up. I was just telling him about myself, and then I said, I love your daughter very much, and I'm asking permission to marry her. And Grandpa looks at me and he goes, no. And that was it. There was no explanation. My wife, Caradine, was a little upset. She started to cry. And we just sat there for a while. And then we decided, let's just go. And I went to my guest room, went to sleep. And, my wife, Caradine, goes to her room. And the next morning, I was awakened. Grandfather comes by and, hey, let's go. I wake up, it's dark outside, and I'm thinking, so I run over to Caradine's room and I wake her up and said, hey, Grandpa's taking me somewhere. And she said, oh, no, you're going to the taro farm. And I'm like, okay. She goes, put on some junk shorts and junk T-shirt. So I find some junk shorts and junk T-shirt and put it on. They're waiting for me in the garage. I jump into their Jeep, and we ride to the taro farm. They didn't speak a word to me the whole day. I'm just watching them. They're gathering the 5-gallon buckets, separating them. Grandpa's preparing something over there. I'm just watching because they're not talking to me. And then they're in the taro patch. So I get in, and they start pulling. And I'm pulling behind them, and I'm watching them, their technique and everything, and I'm just following them down the line. That's what I did. We were there for hours. And back sore, my heart wasn't that full at the time. But anyways, I just followed them, and then it was around lunchtime, and they stopped. And so I helped them carry the bags and everything and put everything away, and still no word. Jump into the Jeep, drive back, and I spent the day with Carradine, and then we come back, and it's dinner time. So after dinner, Grandpa calls us over in the living room. So we sat down, and I'm wondering what's going on, and Grandpa goes, you can marry her. That was it. But I was happy. And so, anyways, unfortunately, we broke up after all of that. I know. But what a lesson, right? He was testing me to see if I can provide and take care of his daughter. And that lesson just stayed with me for the rest of my life. But we broke up, unfortunately, for 6 years. And within those 6 years, I landed a job at the Hilton Hawaiian Village as a security officer, and I loved security work. And I remember telling my friend, you know, my goal is I'm going to be a security director by the age of 30. And he wanted to be an attorney. That was his goal. And on the other side, Carradine ends up going to Chicago. She's in Chicago, and she runs into this family. They find out that she's from Hawaii. And they said, hey, you know, we have a daughter-in-law that's from Hawaii. And she asked, oh, well, what's her name? Well, her name is Ahi Lele Colburn. And she was like, okay, does she have a brother named Coppin Colburn? And they said, yes. And she goes, oh. We were engaged. Well, we're going to invite her for dinner. Let's, you know, just come over for dinner. And so they have dinner. My sister, and I didn't know any of this. My sister goes over there, meets her. They hug each other, and she gives her this ring. It was her engagement ring. And gives it to Carradine. And Carradine's like shocked. Well, fast forward, 1989, actually, before that, you know, I brought her home to meet my family. And as I did that, she was able to meet my grandfather. He was in the dining room. And I just told Grandpa, this is Carradine Kaona. And he said, well, who's David Kaona to you? She said, oh, that's my father. And he asked, well, how is he? Oh, he's well. Can you call him? And so she did. She called him, and then he answered. She handed the phone to my grandfather, and they start speaking in Hawaiian to each other. I'm like, Grandpa, I didn't even know you spoke Hawaiian. And they're catching up, laughing and everything, and he gives the phone back to Carradine, and he gives me the thumbs up. She's the one. So that happened. I skipped that part. But anyways, in 1989, my grandfather passes away. I go to the funeral service, and who's there at the funeral service? Carradine and her grandmother. And I went over there and I hugged them, and you know, it's been a while since I've seen her. And that voice came back to me. And so after the funeral service, I went home and I talked to my father, and I said, I'm going to write a letter to her. So I wrote a letter, just sharing my feelings and my thoughts, and asked if she wouldn't mind getting back together to just talk. She accepted. So we get together at our favorite restaurant, Kimchi. And we're talking. And as we're talking, we knew that we should get married. And so it was at that point that we decided, let's not wait, let's just get married. And so we got married, and we were able to live not far from that beach that I walked, and where I heard that first voice, "This is your home, this is where you belong." I was only 50 feet away from that experience. We were able to raise 4 beautiful daughters in this home. And I remember telling her, "Hey, I'm working at the Hilton Hawaiian Village, and I got a promotion. We can live here on Oahu." She said, "No, not going to happen. We're raising our children on Kauai." And so I had to find a new job. And so I ended up working at the Princeville Hotel. And, after 2 weeks of working over there as a security officer, I get pulled into the office of the general manager. And I don't know why I'm there. And he said, "Hey, unfortunately, we had to let the director of security go, and we're asking if you wouldn't mind being the acting security director." And I said, "Well, what about the other guys? They're qualified?" And he said, "Well, they actually kind of voted for you." And I said, "Well, under those conditions, I accept." And they said, "If you prove yourself, we'll offer you the security director job." Now, keep in mind my goal, right? By 30 years old, I wanted to be a security director. Well, things went well, and I get called to the office again months later, and the general manager and the resident manager meet me right at the door, and they say, "Congratulations." And I'm like, "Oh, well, how did you know it was my birthday?" And they said, "Oh, it's your birthday." And I'm like, "Okay, why am I here? What's the congratulations for?" They said, "Sit down. This is perfect. We're going to offer you the security director job." And I got emotional because of that goal. It was my 30th birthday. That voice came back. Those strong feelings came back to me. None of this would have been possible. The success, being able to live a happy, successful life with my wife, my children, my career, entertainment, none of that would have been possible if I didn't listen to that voice. So my message to you in closing, listen to the voice. Mahalo.